Yo guys, what is up? It's Teach here, coming at you again with another video over on Ark Survival Ascended, and I wanted to show you a video that should hopefully help you out a ton. This one is going to be about handheld weapons and which one is the actual best after the huge buffs and nerfs that we have experienced inside of Ark Survival Ascended. Now, on the bottom of my screen, I have all the weapons that could be considered damaging. You can see that slot 1 all the way to the left, and we're gonna go. I'm show you everything, where to hit, how to do it, everything you need to know about each of these weapons, and why one of them is actually stupid broken. So, if you don't mind, smash that like button, leave a comment below for the algorithm, and then consider subbing to the channel. All right, first off, we have the earliest thing that you can unlock, right? We've got clubs and we've got spears. So clubs are actually really useful. If you didn't know this already, there is now the in-game update where melee is actually affected where you hit on somebody's body. So if you get a hit on a hand, you're actually only going to do 2 damage. A hit to the chest is only going to do 4. However, a hit to the head is going to do the increased 3.5 times damage. Now, with a club, you can basically one-hit someone with a headshot now. Clubs have become insanely powerful. However, the biggest problem is swinging for the head, right? Because you have to actually kind of swing pretty high. Now, one thing that people don't realize is you can kind of see that there's a very large hit range. So it's like a swing, if you want to think of it that way. You can see that my character's like taking a big swing. So as long as you're aiming for the head, there's a massive range in which you can hit. And as long as you're kind of in the general region of the head, you will swing for headshots, and it will do a ridiculous amount of torpidity damage. Meaning that the club is actually a really useful thing, and high level clubs are actually really useful, especially if you can bolus someone and start swinging at them with a club. You will almost instantaneously knock them out if you have a high level club. Very useful. Now, the next thing, these are spears. Now, the only reason that these are a good handheld weapon is because early game, not only are they something you can swing with, but you can also throw them. They do a significant portion of damage. You can see it's much more overall damage than the club, including 89 to the head. However, where they set themselves apart just a little bit is doing the throw to them. You saw that one did 60. You'll see that did 61. It does slightly more damage with a full pullback, but you do not need to do that, by the way. And then if you get him with a headshot, it's going to do 185 base damage. Not very good, actually, because these things break so quickly. So if you're using a spear, it's actually going to break at a random time too. I don't know why the durability on the spears are so different. You see that one right there, it broke after like 10. Sometimes they'll break after like 1 or 2 swings. It all depends on a couple of different factors. The spear is one of the worst weapons. You saw that right there in the game. Don't use it unless you have to. Now, one of the first things that people tend to upgrade is to the pike, because they see the pike. It is a super useful weapon, and it's got a few perks to it, right? So the pike is the next thing on our list. You can see that we've got a 49 base damage, and then to the head we're swinging at 149, and then on the arms you're looking at 29, and then lower legs is 37 and 16 on the feet. So with the pike, the reason that this is such a popular weapon, even though it's not even close to my favorite, is because it has a knockback and it has a bigger range. So you can hit things quite a bit further away with the pike than you would actually imagine. So this is the actual hit range of the pike right here, just so you can see. Because you're technically stabbing it forwards, you can hit things from quite a distance. And if you aim a little high, like you see me right here, as long as I'm in the region of the head of this thing, it's going to do quite a bit of damage. Now, and that is also very useful. If they're swinging at you with a sword and they're right there, they're not going to be able to hit you, whereas the increased range with the pike is going to let you hit them. Now, like I said, pikes also have a knockback, so if you're swinging at something, it's also going to push it back, which gives you a good example. Like if you're going to use against a smaller creature or a player that's running at you, the damage plus the knockback is a very useful technique, because that knockback is going to be very helpful. Now, again, not my favorite. My personal favorite, when you talk about 2 weapons, being the sword or the pike, is the sword. The sword is considered the damage class of hand-to-hand combat, and it is. If you look at it, it does more damage. You can see 89 right there on the body. You got 53 on that one, you got 67 there, and then the head 269. Now the sword, you swing faster than the pike, not by much, by the way. It's a little bit faster, but you'll notice that that one's a little bit slower. The sword swings a little bit faster and gives you a little more overall damage when you're aiming for head, especially. Now, the one negative, right? So we were about, what's called about this far away and hitting with the pike. We're not even close to hitting with the sword at that range. you have to be up in somebody's grill in order to actually hit them with the sword. So there is a range limit. So the pike has a little bit more range, whereas you're going to have to use the sword, be much closer. The pike, you can actually hit somebody off of a mount. So if someone picks you on a Pteranodon or an Argentavis, you can literally look up into the player and hit them with the pike, whereas the sword, you're just going to do damage to the overall tame. But the sword is a fantastic weapon because a high-level sword can do thousands of damage per swing, and I'll show you a little cheap in another video where you can actually buff this and do such a hilarious amount of damage. It's almost funny. Now, before we get into this one, I'm going to show you, I'm just going to break into my favorite weapon in Ark that is highly underused. I'll make a separate video about this, but this is the electric prod, right? So the electric prod, people typically throw these away for some reason. However, in PvP, if you have an electric prod, unless someone is wearing full riot armor, if you hit somebody with an electric prod, they're going to sleep. There's nothing they can do. It applies 280 torpidity right off the bat instantly, so there's nothing you can do to actually prevent it. And it'll also knock out just about any medium or small tame because of that torpidity bonus. So you can see that as soon as it applies it, it literally just goes good night. But yeah, so it's a very powerful thing, and they are really useful. You can see right there that it immediately damages it, but all you need in order to actually get a repair for it is 8 angler gel. So it's really easy to fix. It just happens to be a one-time use until you have to fix it. So it's hilariously overpowered if people are using it. I've seen some people use like the Ascendant level ones and knock out even people with riot gear and stuff like that. The high level ones, like, you're going to sleep. If you hit a Pteranodon, sometimes the Pteranodons are just going night-night, especially with a headshot. It's almost funny. They're very useful, and as long as you get some angler gel, which is not hard to get, you just got to kill the anglers or go fishing, it's a very powerful weapon. Now, this is the ones where it's like, this is, I'm just going to do these 3 quickly, right? So the hatchet does quite a bit of damage, headshot of 119. Not the most useful, but does have a tiny bit of torpidity. Now, if you use the pick, a little bit less than the hatchet, 31, and then 95. However, when it comes to your generic metal tools, the sickle is actually the most dangerous. You can see 149, right? It does slightly more damage than that hatchet. The hatchet applies a little bit less, but the sickle is the most damaging of your metal tools. There's nothing super special about them. They're not going to do anything super cool, but you can see that it's got a little bit of a range on it. Not quite as good as the pike, but it's got a good range. The most powered basic tool in the game. This is nerfed just a little bit in this arc. However, a good torch is going to light somebody on fire. Now, they don't do a lot of base damage. However, if you hit somebody in the head with one of these, you will get that multiplier as well. But where they're really, really strong, right, is when you hit something and it lights on fire. I hear a dodo. Where'd it go? There's one. I don't mean this is bad, but oh well. You can see that if I hit something with a torch, it lights on fire for a quick second. Now, in Ark Survival Evolved, it used to be a lot slower. I mean, it took a lot longer to light things on fire, and it would last for quite a bit longer. However, in Ark Survival Ascended, they cut the time for lighting something on fire significantly down. So you're no longer just going to be able to one-tap somebody with a torch and cause crazy amounts of damage over time. It's a countdown timer of about a second instead of like 3 seconds. So big difference. But it used to be like the champion of PvP. People would run up, slap you with a torch a couple of times, and you just burn to death. It's nowhere near as good anymore, but it's still popular because you can get that burn damage, which prevents healing and stuff like that as well, plus a little bit of damage overall. So those are all of the weapons explained. Now, in my personal opinion, if you're not using the electric prod, you need to put that in your inventory. It makes a massive difference if you're playing PvP, because when someone picks you and you use the electric prod, 280 immediate torpidity is going to knock out any player in the game as long as they're not wearing riot armor, and no one wears riot, so they're going to sleep. Now, the next thing, use the sword. It swings faster. It's slightly less range than the pike, but the sword is a much overall better weapon because it's got a much bigger hit range when I'm swinging at something's head. The amount of damage that I can off-put with a sword is substantially more than any other weapon that you can use inside of Ark, for melee weapons, that is. So definitely choose to use the sword if at all possible. But hopefully this video helps you out, and if you don't mind, again, smack that like button, leave a comment below for the algorithm, and consider subbing to the channel. All right, Teach.
Wow.